Do you believe that technology is hurting God's people? You might immediately respond and say, no, of course not. Technology is good. Think about the Bible software we have and the ability to stream sermons and evangelize through social media and on and on and on we go. For the last 18 years, I have worked with World Video Bible School and the Gospel Broadcasting Network, which are both organizations that use technology to reach the world with the gospel. The point that I'm making is technology in and of itself is not bad. In fact, the way we are using it is very, very good. We've got thousands of videos online that teach the truth of God's Word. We have free online commentaries. We have Bible correspondence courses that people can take that are instantly graded on our website. We have tracts and articles, and we're having baptisms regularly as a result of the work that we're doing. I believe that God has providentially allowed us to develop all of these incredible means of modern technology so that we can reach people with the gospel. In fact, on the day of judgment, if the Lord were to ask us, why did you not take the gospel to the entire world? We might be tempted to say, well, Lord, there were 8 billion people. We couldn't possibly reach them all. To which he might respond, why didn't you use the technology that I gave you? Why didn't you use the internet and smartphones and social media and all of the devices that were always connected? Friends, I don't believe that God has allowed us the modern technology that we have just so that we can binge watch Hulu. I believe we have it so that we can use it for good. But you see, there's a problem. The problem is the devil also knows how to use technology, and he is very good at it. Now, personally, I love technology. I have an iPhone and an iPad and an Apple Watch and a MacBook Pro and an iMac. In fact, this chair that I'm sitting in is an amazing piece of technology that allows me to climb stairs. It allows me to be at an eye-level height. It allows me to do many things that I could not do if it weren't for this. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I do is I reach over and I turn off the alarm on my iPhone. Then I pick up my phone and I check my text messages and my emails and my Facebook and look at the morning news. Then I open the app and adjust the air conditioning that's in my house. I tell Alexa to turn on the lamp, and that's all before I even get out of the bed. In fact, all of the modern technology has really helped me as a paraplegic. The modern life, the modern world is completely intertwined with technology. Now, before I get to the meat of this lesson, let me define my terms. When I'm talking about technology, I'm referring to things like smartphones, tablets, the internet, television, movies, the media, all of the high-tech delivery devices that we use to communicate, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, etc. All of these things have brought some great things to us, but they've also brought us some new challenges. When my wife and I got married 30 plus years ago, I didn't even know anyone who had a cell phone. I didn't know anyone who owned a computer. I'd never heard of the internet. I'd never heard of email. My point is that these are all relatively new things in our society, and they have brought challenges. Is technology hurting God's people? I want us to consider 4 points in the next several minutes. The first point I have simply labeled as minutes. Minutes. I've started all of these with the letter M. Minutes. What do I mean by that? I'm referring to our time. Technology is a huge time sucker. A while back, Facebook started showing these little short videos. I think they call them TikTok videos. And very rapidly, they learn what you like to watch. And so if you like basketball, it's going to start showing you basketball videos. I'm embarrassed to say, but I always like to watch cat videos. And so it's extremely addictive. They'll show you one after another after another. And one day I was watching them, and they're short. It seems like you're not wasting much time. and I realized I had wasted a couple of hours and I had absolutely nothing to show for it. I've had times where I sit back and I realize I am just wasting time that I could do something good. In John chapter 9 and verse 4, Jesus said this, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day, for the night is coming when no man can work. Jesus was saying, I've got work that I have been put here to do. I've got to stay on task. I've got to manage my time. I cannot allow myself to become distracted so that I don't accomplish my mission. And friends, most of social media does exactly that. I want you to think with me for a minute. Can you imagine the time that would be regained if every Christian in the world would lay aside all the social media for one day and instead use that time to study the Word of God or evangelize? What if we did that for 1 week? What if we did it for a month? I think about Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 16, where the Bible says, redeeming the time because the days are evil. What does that mean? It's a very interesting phrase. Redeeming carries with it the idea of getting it back, taking grasp of it because it is slipping away from us. And the idea that the days are evil, well, God created the days, but the idea is that time can slip away from us. We might use it for evil, but we've got to redeem it, buy it back. Have you ever started a day with a list of grand things that you intended to accomplish, but you got to the end of the day and you realize you have gotten nothing done and you don't know where the time went? Forbes.com said that in 2021, the average American spent 3.5 hours per day on social media. That is more than 1,300 hours in a year. Now think about that. That amounts to 25 hours a week. What if you were to redeem that time, regain that time? That would give you a full additional day per week. In fact, if you think about a workday, 8-hour workday, that would be 3 additional workdays. It said that Facebook led the way with 58 minutes per day. Now, let's just do some basic math. If an average person begins using social media at the age of 13, and probably younger than that, but let's say he continues using social media until he dies at the age of 79. Here's the breakdown. Over a lifespan, that is nearly 10 years of total time using social media. Now, for comparison's sake, one company gave this information. They said the total time we spend watching TV is 7 years and 8 months. They say the time we spend eating and drinking is 3 years and 5 months. The time we spend grooming, 1 year and 10 months, socializing, 1 year and 3 months, doing laundry, 6 months. I know it seems longer on the laundry, but that's what they say. What that means is this: the average person will spend more time in his life on social media than doing laundry, socializing, and grooming put together. He will spend more time than he spends eating and drinking. Do you think that we're being distracted by technology? Presently, the average person spends nearly 12% of his life on social media. Now, I want you to consider how many people will say, I don't have time to study the Bible. I don't have time to memorize Scripture. I don't have time to conduct Bible studies. Maybe it's because we're being distracted. Common Sense Media found that overall screen use time amongst teens and tweens increased by 17% in the last few years. On average, they said daily screen use amongst tweens, and I didn't even know what a tween was, but that is ages 8 to 12. They say that On average, the time had increased to 5 hours and 33 minutes per day. For teens, it had increased to 7 hours and 22 minutes per day, and that's age 13 to 18. Years ago, I heard a preacher tell a story that he was teaching a class on stewardship, and he suggested that it would be a good thing when you're thinking about your giving to the Lord, to the church, that you let 10% be the beginning point. And he said there was an elderly lady in the class, and probably in her 80s, and she raised her hand and said, "May I ask a question?" And he said, "Certainly." She said, "We always suggest that we give 10% of our money to the Lord. Why don't we suggest the same thing with regard to our time?" That's interesting, isn't it? Let's think about that in suggestion to how we spend our time. There are 168 hours in a week. So 10%, rounded off, would be 17 hours a week. Let's say that a man were to read his Bible and pray for a total of 1 hour a day. That would be a total of 7 hours for the week. Let's say that that same man attends all of the services of the church: Sunday morning Bible class, Sunday morning worship, Sunday evening worship, midweek worship, and one other function for the church, maybe a fellowship meal, training class, whatever it might be. That would be 5 more hours, and that would bring the total to 12 hours. Let's say that that same Christian man gets off work at 4 p.m. every day. On Monday, he goes and visits the nursing home for 1 hour. Tuesday, he goes to the hospital and he visits for 1 hour. On Wednesday, he maybe goes and visits anyone who's visited the church, who's come to services, for 1 hour. Thursday, he visits the unfaithful in the community for 1 hour. When that man gets through with all of that, he will still have 90% of his time left. People say, we couldn't do that. We don't have time. We're already doing more than that with regard to the time spent on social media. The first point is minutes. The second point is morality. Now, the question is social media, is technology hurting God's people? Think about morality. I want you to think first about homosexuality. Has homosexuality gained ground in the last few years? Of course, the answer is yes. In 1988, statistics say that only 11% of Americans were in favor of homosexual marriage, gay marriage. In 2023, 71% are in favor of homosexual marriage. We went from 11% to 71% in a relatively short amount of time. Now the month of June is celebrated in our country as what they call Pride Month. And if you use streaming television such as Netflix or Hulu or Disney or any of those things, you're going to see a whole section dedicated to homosexual, lesbian, gay, transgender programs. They're pushing it very aggressively. In fact, Disney, in the last couple of years, they came out and said, we're not even being secretive about it anymore. Now, the majority of Americans believe that if a person is gay, they believe he is born gay or lesbian. Why is that? Why do they believe that? And the answer is the media has done a good job of spinning that lie. It's what you read on Facebook. On my iPhone, if you swipe to the far left, there's a section where it will give you a news feed. It's the latest of what's going on in the world. The problem is the choices of options for news are all liberal, biased. They push immorality, including homosexuality. It seems like no matter what television program you try to watch nowadays, they're always going to have a homosexual on it. And the homosexual is always smart and a reasonable, caring person, and those who oppose it are always haters and bigots. You see, the devil is using technology to brainwash us. Millennials support homosexual marriage at a rate of 83%. That's extremely high. Why? Because the media has turned up the heat in the last 20 or 30 years, and it has worked. When it comes to pornography, technology has done tremendous damage. It has contributed to an absolute epidemic. Years ago, if someone wanted to view pornography, they had to go and they had to buy it. They had to find a place where they could get it. They would walk in and they ran the risk that someone would see them. And so there was kind of a built-in inhibition. But it's not that way anymore because of technology. The internet has made it so that people can view pornography in the privacy of their homes, and no one will ever know about it. Or at least that's what they think. A few years ago, there was a man in my neighborhood. He knew I was a preacher, and he came to me. He was asking for help because his wife had repeatedly caught him looking at pornography on his smartphone. And he said his marriage was just in shambles. It was about to fall apart because of this. I hear that sort of thing on a regular basis. According to research, approximately 2/3 of U.S. men now view pornography at least monthly. When it comes to a regular breakdown of this, if you look at the 18 to 30 age group, they say that 79% of them are viewing pornography. In the 31 to 49 group, 67% of them, ages 50 to 68, 50%. The study said that 30% of young men in the 18 to 30 age group view pornography every single day. And I tell you, social media has contributed to this, even Facebook. Now, someone says Facebook doesn't allow pornography. It allows some things that are very, very immodest, very close. And when a young man sees this and it gets the wheels turning in his mind, think about what the devil has done using technology in the realm of entertainment. The devil's done a good job using movies and television. And again, he makes us think that homosexuality is normal, it's acceptable, it's reasonable. Through the movies, the devil gives us storylines of the persecuted gay person and makes us have sympathy for that. The devil has us rooting for the adulterous relationship. He has us hoping that the thief is not going to get caught. You see, the devil is successfully breaking down walls through the use of technology. A few years ago, I was visiting a friend in Texas, and I had gone into his house for lunch. In his living room, next to the TV, he had a sign that said, "How dare we be entertained by the things that sent Jesus to the cross?" Isn't that a good thought? You know, when it comes to technology and our entertainment, we need to keep that in our minds. Now, here is a third thing that has hurt us in the realm of technology, and that is misinformation. The New York Times had an article that said that, quote, experts are worried because social media platforms are filled with misinformation. They say that young people have no idea what's real and what's fake. Forbes.com says whether it is about the presidential election, climate change, or COVID-19 vaccines, misinformation continues to spread rampantly across social media. According to a Pew Research Service study from January of that year, they say more than 8 in 10 U.S. adults, in fact, 86%, said that they get their news, you ready, from their smartphone. Where do they get their news? They get it from social media on their smartphone. North Carolina State University did a peer-reviewed study, that is, it's supposed to have credibility, it's been examined, and this study said that unmistakably They had exposed big tech's most egregious attempt to tilt the scale toward left-wing candidates. What does that mean? What they were saying is they had determined that big tech was using social media, was using the media in general to push their candidates, and that it was working. In fact, the same article talks about how Democratic leaders tried to persuade tech companies to limit certain information before the Roe versus Wade decision came out. And so the devil is using technology. Top sources that people go to get their information, of course, Google. A large percentage of Americans are using Facebook as their main source for news. Both of these are filled with liberal media bias. And so if your child is getting their news this way, they're going to be in trouble. Imagine this. Imagine taking a new Christian or taking a child and letting them spend 5 to 7.5 hours a day just reading false doctrine, false information. Would that affect them? Would it affect their view of the world? Would it affect their Bible knowledge? Of course it would. In fact, a mature Christian would be hurt by feeding his mind on that. You see, we need to be teaching the truth biblically and scientifically and politically and socially and sexually and morally, because if our young people are not getting the truth from us and they're getting their information from social media, it is going to be severely skewed. Now, somebody says, yeah, but there are fact checkers who examine this information to be sure that it is accurate. The problem is the fact checkers are also very biased in the things they're putting out. Imagine if a young person is getting his information about politics from these very biased liberal sources. What if he's getting his information about religion and the Bible, or abortion, the election, COVID? Several years ago when COVID was taking place, if you didn't agree with what the government was saying, then it was labeled as false information, and a few months later it would be we'd be told it's the truth. Here's the fourth point. It's the word mission. Now, what do I mean by mission? What I mean is modern technology is hurting us when it comes to our mission. And by that, I mean our objective. Why are we here? Why did God put us on this earth? I've got a limited amount of time on this earth. What should I be doing with that time? Here's the answer. It's Revelation chapter 4 and verse 11. It says, "Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. For thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created." That's the King James rendering, but it's so beautifully worded. So what is our purpose in life according to that verse? Our purpose is to bring pleasure to God. Listen to this verse, Ecclesiastes 12:13. "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." The word duty has actually been added. It's not in the original. The original says, "Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man." I like that better. That means this is what man is all about. This is my all. And so if I fail to do that, I have missed my purpose. I may graduate the top of my class and get a PhD and be a respected academic scholar. But if I fail to fear God and keep his commandments, I've missed my purpose. I might build a huge, successful company and retire as a billionaire. But if I fail to fear God and keep his commandments, my life has been a waste. I could find a cure for cancer, but if I fail to do this, I have missed my purpose. I heard a story about a man who was a watchmaker during the Civil War, and he got drafted into the war, and his unit was positioned in a certain place. They were placed there, and they were to wait until they were called to duty. And so they were there for weeks. During the downtime while they were waiting, many people found out he was a watchmaker, and they started bringing their watches to him for him to repair them. Well, eventually they received their orders to go into battle, and the watchmaker said, I can't possibly go into battle. I've got too many watches to repair. You see, he had forgotten why he was there. I believe our modern technology sometimes has made us forget why we are here. I believe that we have a generation of people who has come to believe that their greatest purpose in life is to be entertained all the time. And to that end, we've got smartphones, and they're loaded with music and movies and games, and we've got our tablets, and they're linked to Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Prime, and the majority of American houses now have streaming services. Our cars have, some of them still have DVD players and XM satellite radio and Bluetooth and Pandora and Spotify. And in our homes, we've got Xbox and PlayStation and a Dish Network and cable TV, every streaming service available. According to Nielsen stats, the average American adult is watching 5 hours and 4 minutes a day of television. The bulk of that is on HD TVs. 94% of Americans, they say, have them. Some of it we watch on our tablets. The majority of American homes have them. They say that the average household now watches an entire season of a television show. You ready for this? In 5 days. We call it binge watching. Entire season in 5 days. I don't know how we could look at the number of hours that are spent watching TV, playing with technology, and argue that we are not being distracted from our mission. I want you to do something for me. I want you to think about this. Just answer the question to yourself. How many hours have I spent this week in prayer? Now, if it's hours. How many hours have I spent this week in Bible study? If it's hours. How many hours have I spent in attendance at worship? How many hours have I spent teaching others and in evangelism? In Luke 19:10, Jesus said that his mission was to seek and to save the lost. And if I'm a Christian, if I'm a part of the church of Christ that he purchased with his blood, my mission as his body is the same as his as the head of the body. John 9 and verse 4, Jesus said, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day, for the night is coming when no man can work. That is to say, I've got a mission. I've got work to do, and I've got a limited amount of time to do it. At one point in the life of Jesus, a lawyer came to him and asked him the question, Master, what is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus responded that you should love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and all of your mind. This is the first and the great commandment, Matthew 22:36 through 38. May we never let our technology or anything else cause us to lose sight of that goal.